What if I told you that what you call doubt is actually love in its nascent state, a bud still rooted in the fertile soil of the psyche? What if that silence, that hesitation in his gesture, that subtle dance between revealed and hidden emotions were, in fact, the primordial language of the king within, the whisper announcing an initiation already consummated at the deepest level of the masculine being? This text doesn't aim to weave romantic fantasies, but to delve into the complexity of masculine archetypes, to decipher the silent signs that Robert Moore taught us to recognize. The most authentic feelings, as Robert Moore shows us, don't announce themselves in strident cries, but insinuate themselves in delicate nuances, in almost imperceptible resonances of warrior energy. And if you allow yourself to hear the silent music of the king, you will understand that he is immersed in a love deeper than his words can express. And the most eloquent sign of this love, my dear, may already be right before your eyes, waiting to be recognized. Today you will not only hear an explanation, you will clearly see everything that your feminine intuition has always known, but which modern culture, with its emphasis on the rational, frequently disqualifies as weakness. You will understand why true love rarely presents itself with the arrogance of certainty. It disguises itself in the shyness of doubts, in the fog of confusion, in the disconcerting silence of the magician, and in the gazes that speak the language of the warrior soul, a language far more eloquent than any verbal declaration. Robert Moore reminds us that what doesn't integrate into consciousness manifests as destiny, an archetypal dance. And in the realm of love, this truth reveals itself with the undeniable force of the lover. For often, the mind still gropes in the dark, while the king within has already recognized his queen. You may have already experienced this. That man who contradicts himself, who oscillates between approach and distance, who contemplates you as if he sees in you the reflection of his own warrior soul, but then retreats, confessing he doesn't know what he feels, who demonstrates a genuine interest in every detail of your being, but hesitates to name the feeling that inhabits him. He isn't cruel, he's in conflict with his archetypes. True love, with its overwhelming force, disarms him, and many men feel lost in the face of this surrender to the lover. It is in this unknown territory that the mystery of the king within manifests, what Robert Moore would describe as the answers of the unconscious. He doesn't verbalize, but he perceives, observes, remembers, transforms through the power of the magician. The intonation of his voice, the language of his body, the depth of his gaze, everything in him reacts to your presence in a way he himself cannot decipher, because the king, in his archetypal wisdom, acts before consciousness. Did you notice how he listens to your "I'm fine" and perceives the dissonance between your words and the truth of your feeling? How he keeps in memory a small confidence you shared weeks ago? How his eyes light up when he sees you arrive? How he accompanies you in silence, in a full and undefended presence like a warrior before his queen? And in that silence there is a presence, a surrender, a truth that transcends words. These are not mere details. They are the signs that the king within has already recognized you. But love, when genuine, awakens what was dormant in the archetype of the lover. It takes us out of control, dissolves certainties. That's why many men resist. They don't know how to handle the intensity of what they feel, so they rationalize, distance themselves, fall silent, create distance. But that doesn't mean an absence of love. It means that the feeling is so real, so visceral, that it frightens them. And you feel this because your feminine also recognized it, even when everything seems ambiguous. It's as if an inner voice whispers, "This is not an illusion, there's an archetypal dance here." But then why does it hurt so much? Because love that hasn't yet been embraced by consciousness creates conflict with the magician. You question whether you're exaggerating, projecting your desires, deluding yourself. But the truth, my dear, is that you see more than he does, because you see with the eyes of the feminine soul. Robert Moore teaches us that we frequently project onto others what we long to integrate within ourselves. And in this case, what you perceive in him may be a reflection of the love you are ready to experience, but he hasn't yet reached that point of integration of the archetypes. And this lag between two souls generates pain. You are already where he still needs to arrive, but how to know if he really feels it? The answer is not in words, but in the silent language of the unconscious, in the movements of king, It's in the way he transforms in your presence, becoming lighter, more human, more vulnerable, as if allowing himself to be truly himself, without the masks the world imposes, as if, inexplicably, he feels he can lower his guard with you, revealing the lover. It's when his gaze softens as he listens to you, when he falls silent yet remains entirely present. It's when he notices you've cut your hair without you mentioning it, when he asks about something you said long ago, when he shows up for no apparent reason, when he worries about your pain, without knowing how to comfort you but cares genuinely. These are the true signs, discreet, almost imperceptible yet constant, because true love doesn't need fireworks. It reveals itself in subtle gestures, in details unnoticed by the world, but instantly recognized by your soul. But then the big question arises, if he feels all this, why doesn't he express it in words? Because true feeling doesn't reside in the realm of reason. It inhabits the unconscious, the kingdom of the king. And the unconscious doesn't communicate through verbal language. It expresses itself through symbols, instincts, involuntary movements, through an unsettling absence, a nameless desire, a repeated gesture without conscious explanation. He doesn't understand yet, but he already feels the power of the lover. And it's crucial to understand. The time of the soul is not the same as the time of the mind. You are facing a love germinating in the deepest layers of the masculine being. A love still taking shape, a love struggling against the walls built to protect a wounded heart. A love that might be the first to truly touch him. That's why he hesitates, gets confused, contradicts himself. The feeling is stronger than his rational capacity to process it, and this destabilizes him. But unconscious love is the truest because it doesn't depend on a deliberate choice, a conscious intention, a strategy. It simply happens. Robert Moore reminds us that the unconscious, when ignored, directs our lives, and we call that fate, the dance of archetypes. And perhaps that's what's happening with him now. His soul recognizes you as destiny, even if his mind doesn't yet understand. And when that happens, everything transforms. His way of thinking, moving, being. His world inexplicably begins to reorganize around you. Don't cling to what he says. Observe what he does. Notice how he sees you, even amidst chaos, how he finds ways to be near you. Observe how he contradicts himself sometimes, trying to deny what the unconscious has already decided. And if you feel confused, it's because you're facing a love that's still being born. But that comes from the most sacred place of the masculine psyche, the space where the king acts before consciousness. And the first sign of this, perhaps you've already noticed it. You haven't named it yet? You haven't named it, but that will come. Because in the next few minutes you will immerse yourself in the deeper signs that Robert Moore taught us to recognize. You will understand how his energy transforms in your presence, how he begins to protect you invisibly, like a warrior protecting his queen, how he thinks of you when you're not around, and why, even without the courage to express it in words, he is already deeply in love at the service of the lover. You will see not what he says, but what his soul silently screams. And perhaps in the end, you will discover something even deeper, that this connection didn't begin now, and maybe not even in this life. Have you ever had the feeling that someone saw you, but not with physical eyes? That there was something in the way he looked at you, even if he wasn't aware he was looking, something that vibrated at a frequency, a resonant archetype that you couldn't explain but felt deeply in your wild self. It's as if, for a few seconds, he forgot the world and you became the silent center of everything he couldn't name. The inner king finding his queen. He quickly averts his gaze, changes the subject, acts as if nothing happened. But it did. His soul, the expression of the deep feminine, captured him. True love, as Robert Moore shows us, doesn't enter through the door of logic. It sneaks through the cracks of the unconscious, emerges from the depths of the wild self. That's why people don't know how to deal with it, with this primordial force. They try to rationalize, control, contain the archetypal energy. But when it comes to deep feelings, control is the first thing that's lost. And what comes after is what you feel at this very moment. It's this silent whirlwind in which you perceive a deep connection, a dance of masculine and feminine energies. Feminine, yet unspoken. Perhaps it will never be spoken, because the most intense connection between two people doesn't always reveal itself through words. It's in the way he looks at her, the subtlety of his gestures, the silent resonance between two souls, two developing selves, recognizing each other. The soul, the authentic expression of being, whispers when he thinks you're not looking. It's when her name slips from his lips without him realizing, an echo from the unconscious. When he saves fragments of stories like precious seeds to plant later in his inner garden, in the fertile earth of the psyche. When a different silence surrounds him in her presence. A silence that isn't absence, but a profound presence. A sacred space where the soul, the self in transformation, speaks, and the heart, the center of emotional experience, listens. Even if nobody else notices, how many times have you remembered a small gesture, a sudden presence, a concern over something minimal, almost insignificant, a sign of the emergence of the inner warrior, or when he was silent but stayed, anchored in your pain, as if he felt it without you needing to voice it, expressing the compassion of the compassionate self. These are the marks of a love germinating in the unconscious, often remaining there, never becoming a declaration, a still nascent expression of archetypal energy. What if it was love? What if this man who confuses her with words, with the logic of the ego, has already confessed everything in the silences, in the spaces between the lines of the soul, in the whispers of the unconscious? Do you remember the time he defended you, even subtly, like someone protecting something precious, revealing the protective strength of the king archetype? Or when someone spoke of you and his gaze changed, as if something touched him deeply, a sacred unease within him, an awakening of the inner magician? These small moments are windows to the soul, portals to the self. She cries out in every detail, but he doesn't yet know how to decipher his own echoes, the murmurs of the unconscious. His mind, perhaps wounded by old battles, by confrontations with the shadow, still tries to protect itself, taking refuge in the defenses of the ego. Perhaps Robert Moore is right in saying that vulnerability, the exposure of the sensitive self, is often mistaken for weakness, for the inability of the warrior. Perhaps he doesn't yet know how to handle something so authentic, the raw power of love. Because yes, when the soul truly feels, something inside breaks and rebuilds itself, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, a rebirth of the self. You may not realize it, but the transformation, the journey of individuation, is already underway. Sometimes, subtly, he begins to take an interest in your ideas, to listen to your opinions more attentively, to modulate his tone of voice, to adapt his plans. Everything seems fortuitous, but it bears the mark of the unconscious reorganizing itself, the dance of archetypes in motion, because true love, as Robert Moore says, messes everything up, is wonderfully disordered, a chaotic force that transforms being. Have you seen this happen? A man, previously completely reasonable, dominated by the ego, suddenly hesitates, becomes more thoughtful, more present, more unstable. It's not indecision, but a transition, his unconscious working to break down old defenses, opening space for the image of you to bloom in his inner world, for the integration of the feminine. And perhaps he's still fighting against this force, against the emergence of the inner lover. How many men retreat when they begin to truly love? Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. Because suddenly, you represent more than a pleasant presence. You represent a transformation, a possible rupture with everything he believed himself to be, a challenge to the structure of the ego. Unintentionally, you invite him to take a new look at himself, to observe himself, and this frightens him, places him face to face with his shadow. That's why he contradicts himself, approaches and disappears, seems distant, and reappears just when you're about to give up. It's not coincidence. It's a reaction. The soul, upon encountering its mirror, upon encountering the other face of the self, is frightened but also fascinated, and it always returns like the waves of the sea, like the ebb and flow of archetypal energy. Robert Moore speaks of the process of individuation, the path on which we become what we truly are, the integration of all aspects of the self. And this process, according to Robert Moore, only begins when something or someone destabilizes us enough to knock down our masks, to break down the defenses of the ego. And you may be that someone for him. The way you touch his world is unusual. as if you had activated an unknown frequency in him, awakened a dormant archetype. He feels it, but he can't yet name it, understand it in the language of the ego. That's why he changes. Notice, he doesn't treat you like he treats others. He contradicts himself with you, becomes flustered, more genuine, more human, more chaotic, only with you. And that's the biggest sign, because true love, as Robert Moore teaches us, doesn't come to strengthen the ego but to dismantle it, to reshape it, to integrate it with the self. You might expect a clear statement, a direct gesture, and "I love you," but perhaps you've already received something much greater, the involuntary surrender of his soul, the authentic expression of his being, in the way he acts around you, how he protects you from minor annoyances, how he cares about your routine, how he includes you without realizing it, how he seeks your gaze even in silence. This isn't a game, it's the soul in motion, the dance of the archetypes, and that's why you feel lost, because you see all this, but you don't hear confirmation in the language of the ego. But you're not wrong. You see with your heart, with the intuition of the self, and deep down, you know, the deepest love rarely manifests through words. It arrives with gestures, with frequencies, with sensations, with the resonance of the archetypes. It's when he hears your laughter and smiles to himself. It's when you're sad and he feels the urge to hug you, even without knowing why. The emergence of the compassionate self. It's when you're not there, but he still carries you in his mind, in his body, in his way of being. The integration of the feminine into his inner world. And if that's not love, what could it be? Many people, not knowing how to name these signs, clinging to the logic of the ego, ignore them, distance themselves, lose, give up. But not you. You felt it, you saw it, and now you need to decide what to do with it, because maybe he's not yet ready to confess, to translate the language of the soul into the ego, but you are ready to understand. And the truth is, when two souls meet at this level, when two selves recognize each other, they are already united, even without labels, without definitions, without promises. They've already begun to dance the dance of the archetypes. And this silent dance is what Robert Moore would call destiny, the path traced by the unconscious. But to deal with this, you need more than intuition. You need emotional balance, clarity, firm footing, the strength of the inner warrior. A sensitive heart, yes, but also a centered heart, the wisdom of the king. Because feeling all this without being prepared can hurt you, can destabilize the ego. That's why if you feel this connection deeply touches you, perhaps it's time to seek something that helps deepen this self-knowledge, to maintain your peace, even amidst a love that hasn't yet surfaced, to strengthen yourself. The ebook Junlude Methods, A Day for Inner Peace and Mental Clarity, based on the teachings of Robert Moore, was created with this objective. It offers an intimate space for you to reconnect with yourself, with your deep self, a light and transformative path to access the strength of your soul while everything seems uncertain outside, to integrate your archetypes. You will find practices that integrate into your daily life, but deeply touch what you feel, resonating with your journey of individuation. If this video resonated with you, the link is in the comment box attached to this video. Perhaps it's the step you were waiting for to transform this waiting into strength and this doubt into presence, to integrate the feminine and the masculine within your being. Have you ever wondered why, among so many people, he only changes with you? Why, with others, he seems to have everything under control, the ego in command, but when he's with you, something in him disarms. As if the shield falls, the warrior lowering his guard even for a few seconds. And during these seconds, man in his journey seeks totality. As Robert Moore would say, when one soul recognizes another, the body manifests before the mind, not always clearly. Sometimes he stutters, laughs for no reason, or plunges into a revealing silence, deeper than 1,000 words. Did you notice these signs, these echoes of the soul? Or, like many, are you waiting for words while his spirit already cries out? Robert Moore reminds us that the unconscious creates symptoms to reveal the truth. In love, these symptoms manifest in unexpected behaviors, subtle changes, impulses he tries, in vain, to hide. Observe. Does he look away, or does he watch you when he thinks he's not being seen? That uncontrolled gaze which escapes envelops, sees you as something sacred, and then retracts, apprehensive, is a frequent sign of unconscious love. Why this dance of approach and flight? Because in that moment of truth, he confronts his own vulnerability. And for many men, vulnerability, as Robert Moore describes, is forbidden territory, not because they don't feel it, but because they've learned to associate it with weakness, with loss of control. They believe that to love is to surrender, becoming a hostage. But what if true strength lies in the ability to feel without fragmenting? If this question resonates with you, comment below. I feel the vibration beyond words. I want to know how many women on this channel feel before they hear, recognize the unspeakable in silence. You are not alone on this journey of individuation, and perhaps he isn't either. This transformative, soul-connecting energy, echoing in the soul, is rare. It doesn't manifest in every lunar cycle, nor is it found in every garden of the psyche. That's why it frightens, awakens the shadow. He may maintain his routine, his social persona, pretending nothing has shifted in his inner world, but in essence, in the subtle dance of energies, everything transforms. Notice, he's more careful, as if weaving a protective cloak around you, concerned for your well-being in silent prayer. It's not mere kindness. It's the archetype of the masculine in its protective essence manifesting. It's his unconscious, the subterranean river of his soul, beginning to integrate you into his world. As a vital, essential element, there's a spark in him that only awakens in your presence. A presence that calms the inner storm and, at the same time, ignites the fire of transformation. An energy that disorganizes known patterns and reconstructs from the ruins, preparing the ground for a new blossoming. That's why he withdraws, disappears, not for lack of feeling, but because of the intensity that overwhelms him. He needs to distance himself to return to what he considers normal, to reorganize the pieces of the puzzle. But normality, the illusion of a static life, no longer exists. You have already penetrated his energy field, the secret garden of his emotions. You've touched a deep chord in his soul that he cannot ignore. This changes everything, even how he unconsciously includes you in his journey. He talks about projects, about dreams, and you are implicitly present, like the invisible warp of the tapestry of his life. He shares memories, music, films, and you are the first with whom he wants to share the beauty and fragility of existence. You feel the change, the subtle vibration of transformation. But perhaps you doubt, because he hasn't yet verbalized what moves in his heart. He hesitates, recoils before the immensity of feeling. He hides in the shadows of himself. Therein lies the mystery of the soul. True love, in its primordial form, rarely presents itself as certainty. It arrives as an inner rupture, existential unease, psychic displacement, because what was before no longer corresponds to the reality of the soul, and what will be has not yet blossomed. You are, on this threshold, the bridge between these two versions of him. And this is a soul's call to the journey of individuation. That's why he may seem more sensitive, vulnerable, inattentive, introspective. Part of him is in a liminal space between the known and the unknown. He is digesting what the soul has already understood, but the ego still resists. Have you experienced this dance between soul and ego, this absent presence, this echo of the beloved in the inner sanctuary? Right here, share. Help other women who are traversing the same passage. And if you've never experienced it, perhaps you are experiencing the awakening of the soul to love. Loving someone imprisoned within their walls, in the labyrinths of the psyche, demands serene, silent strength, firm as an ancestral rock. You cannot force the maturation of consciousness, but you can observe with compassion, with the delicacy of a petal in the wind, respecting the sacred time of the soul. In this inner alchemy, you too transform, become more yourself, more attuned to the whispers of the soul, more intuitive, more connected with feminine wisdom. You feel the world from within, perceive the subtle dance of energies. You see in the spaces between the lines the secret language of love. A love that vivifies you, makes you conscious and paradoxically more alone, because it's difficult to carry a feeling that is still nameless, unacknowledged. It's difficult to love in silence, to wait without promises, to care without reciprocity. What if it's in vain? What if he closes himself off within his walls, abandons the path of the heart without knowing what he loses. Observe the signs of the soul. He listens to you attentively, seeking to understand the music of your soul. He appreciates what you appreciate, sees the world through your eyes. He changes small habits, dances to the rhythm of a new melody. He becomes more sensitive to your emotions, to your vulnerability. He takes an interest in what he previously ignored, like someone discovering a new inner continent. It is his soul, the vital force, trying to include you in his journey, not as just another person, but as someone he doesn't want to lose, a treasure to be kept in his heart. And at times, he fights against the current, tries to save appearances, keep his persona intact. But the body, the dwelling place of the soul, according to Robert Moore, reveals the profound truth. It doesn't lie. His eyes, the mirror of the warrior soul, don't lie. The way he stops, talking about, listen to yourself, bathe in the light of your sovereign presence, don't lie. This isn't coincidence, it's affection in its genesis, the initiation rite of love, the first step on the hero's and his queen's journey. And when you realize, when you understand the archetypal depth of what's blossoming between you, you also begin your transformation, your descent into the underworld of the psyche. You no longer want crumbs, remnants of superficial affection. You're no longer content with the surface, with the empty words of the immature ego, because you perceive the presence of the numinous, an ocean of emotions, a portal to the self to be explored. This depth demands courage, the courage of the spiritual warrior to await the soul's unfolding, but also the courage to protect yourself, to honor your own heroine's journey, because not all men who feel deep emotions are ready to confront them, to surrender to the dance of the king and queen. Your challenge, your inner calling, is to discern, to know when to remain in the sacred dance and when to withdraw with the dignity of a sovereign queen. But for now, if you've come this far, it's because you sense something true, something authentic in this connection, something that resonates with your warrior soul, something that deserves to be understood with more delicacy, with the reverence we dedicate to the sacred masculine and feminine, something that may be larger than both of you, an archetypal mystery to be unveiled on the journey of love. And now, I'd like to extend a simple invitation, a call to sharing, to the meeting of souls. If this text touched you, if it resonated with the music of your warrior soul, comment below with a word that describes what you feel in this moment. Confirmation, confusion, hope, fear, or simply truth. This word may seem small, a drop in the ocean of the psyche, but it carries a whole universe of emotion, an echo of your inner journey. And perhaps by writing it, you'll begin to name what until now only lived in the invisible, in the realm of dreams and silent prayers, in the cauldron of the soul. For that is what love does. It is first invisible, a whisper of the self, and then inevitable, an archetypal force that moves mountains. And if you're experiencing this, don't ignore the signs, the whispers of your warrior soul, because when the soul begins to react, the body, life, destiny, everything begins to move in a new dance, the dance of the king and queen, and what comes next can change everything. There are moments when a man begins to change, but so discreetly, so subtly, like the unfolding of a flower at dawn, that he himself believes he remains the same. But this isn't the case. The transformation begins in the invisible, in what Robert Moore describes as the descent into the underworld, in what he feels when you're not there, in what he thinks when he lies down at night and everything is silent, in the way you appear in his thoughts, like a guiding star in his inner sky, like the anima that illuminates his journey, not because he forces you to, but because you simply arrive, like the gentle morning breeze, like the personification of feminine energy. It could be a scent he smells that reminds him of your presence, a perfume that evokes your archetypal essence. It could be a phrase you said that comes back to his mind without apparent reason, an echo of your feminine wisdom. It could be an everyday situation where he surprises himself, thinking, if she were here now, as if your presence were a balm for the warrior soul. These signs don't make noise. They're as subtle as the flight of a butterfly, but they are the strongest proof that his soul is already in motion, that the seed of love is germinating within him, guided by the archetypes of Robert Moore. And this isn't romanticism, It's the human psyche in its raw state, the eternal dance between the masculine and the feminine, the meeting of the king and queen. Robert Moore said that the symbols that inhabit the unconscious are alive, and that when activated by true emotions, they begin to reorganize our inner reality. You are not just a physical presence in his life, a body that moves in the world. You have become an emotional symbol, an invisible point of reference, an axis around which his warrior soul begins to turn, and this changes everything, aligned with the teachings of Robert Moore. Have you heard of the Zeigarnik effect? It's a psychological phenomenon proven by Robert Moore that reveals the following. Our minds tend to remember unfinished tasks more vividly than those already completed. Now stop and reflect. What happens when a feeling is left hanging, like a dormant seed in the soil of the psyche? When love is not declared, when a connection is felt but not expressed, not named, it becomes a constant presence, an open cycle, a vibration that insists on returning, like the waves of the sea that kiss the sand. That's exactly what happens when a man is in love but doesn't yet understand the language of his own heart, the language of archetypes according to Robert Moore. You remain in his mind as an unfinished sequence, an incomplete melody. So, everything concerning you returns to him, even if he tries to deny it, even if he tries to hide behind the walls of his immature ego. Do you remember that time he reacted disproportionately to something small, perhaps a criticism, a comment about you, or a situation where you seemed distant, like the moon hiding behind clouds? It wasn't the moment itself that bothered him, it was what was accumulating within him, the undigested emotions, the shadow dance within, which Robert Moore describes so profoundly, and which he hadn't yet assimilated. This is what Robert Moore calls emotional transference. Robert Moore was one of the first to observe how we project our unresolved emotions onto living characters, how we seek in others the mirror that reflects our own archetypal depths. In other words, when you appear in his life and awaken a real deep feeling, you also activate inner parts that were dormant, parts of him he himself didn't know, archetypes described by Robert Moore. And he doesn't know what to do with this new energy, with this force that moves him from within. You become a mirror to his warrior soul, and every true mirror reveals both what is beautiful and what is wounded, both light and shadow, as Robert Moore teaches us. Perhaps this explains why sometimes his warrior soul shows itself so strong and then retreats like the tide. Why does he seem so present one day and distant the next? Because the love you feel for him may have become an inevitable yet frightening path, a dive into the unconscious, the hero's journey as described by Robert Moore. How many men do you know who have learned that love demands performance, a mask, the persona of the immature ego? That one must be secure, stable, have something to offer, a shield for the heart, before surrendering to the vulnerability of the warrior soul. Now imagine what happens when they encounter a love that demands only presence, authentic being, the integration of the shadow, according to Robert Moore. They deconstruct, their defenses crumble, and they begin to change without understanding why. You might notice that they lose their appetite or become more introspective, as if they were listening to an inner voice, long silenced, the voice of the self. Their thoughts scatter, like seeds in the wind. Something seems strange to them, yet at the same time more human, more fragile, like a butterfly newly emerged from its chrysalis. These signs are real. They are the body's response to the psychic movement underway, the dance of the soul in transformation. It's the unconscious reorganizing its priorities, old patterns giving way to the new. It's the soul beginning to write a new chapter, a new story of itself. And this chapter concerns you. But how can you be sure that this change is real and that it includes you, that it welcomes you into its being? Again, notice, when you're not around, does he mention you in casual conversations, as if your presence were a soft light that accompanies him? If something happens, does he save it to tell you as if you were the keeper of his secrets and joys? If in moments of joy or sorrow, his first reflex is to seek your presence, even without physical contact, a connection beyond words, then you are already part of his emotional structure, of the tapestry of his warrior soul. Robert Moore shows us that when a deep emotional bond begins to form, the body responds, the soul recognizes, the unconscious moves before the conscious mind. That's why he often begins to talk about the future, and you are there, interwoven in his dreams, personifying his anima, as Robert Moore would say. Even if he doesn't express it directly, you reside in the spaces between the lines of his intentions, in the void of the incomplete sentence, like a silent archetype. If this resonates with you, know that you are not alone. Countless other women experience this same journey, and their stories echo, a chorus of souls seeking initiation into the deep masculine. Experiencing this nameless love is a blessing, a glimpse of the numinous, but it can also be a solitary journey into the unknown, a descent into the hells of the soul. Understand that you are not the only one who longs for recognition, for revelation, for this blossoming of warrior love. But be careful. Don't confuse the absence of demonstration with the absence of feeling. Robert Moore teaches us that many men have not been initiated into emotional expression. They are unfamiliar with the rites of passage to maturity. The masculine emotional vocabulary is often rudimentary, a wild garden awaiting cultivation. They know the language of anger, hunger, desire. He knows these, but he doesn't know how to translate confusion, admiration, enchantment, vulnerability, and love. True love, the love that heals and transforms. It's all part of a process, a rite of passage. He's in transformation, an awakening of the inner warrior. That's why he seems disoriented, lost in a new territory of the soul. He's like this because you've reached an unexplored space within him, an inner sanctuary. You've awakened in him the ancestral memory of something he may not have even known he was seeking, the nostalgia for a primordial home he'd forgotten. You've become the silence between his thoughts, the body he misses even amidst the crowd, the ancestral voice that echoes when he wants to hear no one but you. And this is the proof that an alchemy is underway, a sacred dance between the masculine and the feminine. Even if he doesn't say it, even if he denies it, even if he runs, you are already integral to his process of individuation, his journey back to the wholeness of self. And perhaps you wonder, how long will this dance between light and shadow last, this crossing of the desert of the soul? The answer is, until he's ready, until the inner warrior surrenders to the fullness of love, until he recognizes the king within himself. And yes, this can take time. It can be slow, painful, confusing, like crossing an archetypal desert, but it can also be the beginning of something unexpected, an oasis in the desert of the soul. Because when the soul recognizes, it never forgets. And this is true even for those who fear to look, who resist the transformative power of love. Robert Moore teaches us that true love, when reciprocal and mature, possesses a therapeutic power, capable of transforming emotional structures, healing ancestral wounds, and paving the way for the new man. At this stage of the journey, his role may be to allow himself to feel, but yours is to continue to see, to be the mirror that reflects his inherent beauty, because there is no greater gift than being seen by someone who cannot yet see themselves. If you feel you are that mirror, the reflection he avoids but incessantly seeks, then you are already in the game, not just in his life, but in the deepest process of individuation he has ever experienced. And this, in essence, is love in its purest form, the union of the masculine and the feminine. What he does with it is his responsibility, but what you do with what you feel is yours. And perhaps the continuation of this journey will help you better understand what will come. Because when this love transcends the interior and manifests in attitudes, there comes a moment when his silence no longer hurts. A serene acceptance settles in. A moment when you stop looking for external signs, because everything within us already knows. It is then that you realize he doesn't need to say, "I love you," to be completely consumed by this feeling, because there are loves that transcend words. He overflows in the way he changes without realizing it. And now you see him. You see how he has begun to adjust his steps, how he thinks twice before making a decision, how he silently reorganizes his schedule, how he begins to avoid certain situations, not because you asked, but because you already occupy a space in his future. And he feels it, even without being able to explain it. And it is on this threshold between what is and what has not yet been said that one of the greatest truths of love resides. It transforms even before it is named. How many times have you felt this strange mixture of absence and presence, of doubt and certainty, of waiting and meeting, as if you were living a relationship that hasn't yet begun but already exists in every gesture, in every change, in every invisible choice? You have become a point of emotional impact in his life, and this is rare, very rare. Most people pass through our lives without leaving a trace. They come and go. They share hours, stories, but they don't catalyze change. Not you. You have become the presence that disorganizes but also reveals, because deep down you haven't just touched his heart, you've awakened his consciousness. And this is the most intense and dangerous part of love. It's the moment when he begins to see himself differently through you. This can be liberating but also terrifying, because many spend their lives avoiding this mirror. They prefer superficial relationships, repetitive rituals, predictable bonds. But you arrived with your listening silence, with your speaking presence, with your way of touching without invading. And he felt it, even if he fought it, even if he denied it, even if he tries to rationalize it, because the soul is not silenced by logic, and perhaps now he is trying to maintain internal order. He finds excuses, telling himself it's just friendship, that you deserve someone better, that he can't offer you what you expect. But all this is resistance. It's the instinct of self-preservation in the face of something too great to be controlled. Because true love demands something few are willing to offer: surrender. And emotional surrender is a rupture. It requires dismantling defenses, accepting one's own fragility, relinquishing control, embracing uncertainty. It's a process of death and rebirth of the ego, beliefs and fears. You notice when he begins to move away from older versions of himself. He might stop going to places he once enjoyed. He might change his conversations, his friends, his values. He starts questioning himself. He re-examines his memories, re-evaluates his choices, and you are at the center of it all. Not as someone demanding, but as a sacred chalice, overflowing with inspiration. And therein lies the difference. You imposed nothing. You simply radiated your presence. And it was this emanation that triggered the metamorphosis. You see this process in the subtlest gestures, in the nuances of the soul. When he listens with his heart, when his gaze meets yours in a silence full of meaning, when he allows himself to show his vulnerability, even for a moment, when he admits a mistake, when he whispers, "I don't know how to deal with this, but I'm searching for a way." These words, these fleeting moments, are more authentic than any repeated vow, because transformative love doesn't spring from immaculate perfection. It reveals itself in human imperfection, in the stumbles along the journey, in the disharmonies of the soul. And if you've come this far, my dear, it's because you witnessed everything and remained. You anchored your presence when it would have been easier to scatter, to flee into the shadows. You felt the pain when it would have been more comfortable to close yourself off, to ignore the soul's calling. You chose to see, to look beyond appearances, even though he offered you no guarantees, no glimpse of the future. And that is true courage. The courage to love at the other's unique rhythm, to respect the unfolding of his soul without losing sight of your own, blossoming to keep your heart receptive, but your feet firmly grounded in reality, to trust in the mystery of the invisible. In the subtle dance of masculine and feminine energies, as Robert Moore teaches us, you may feel exhausted, feeling the weight of the archetypal journey. You may wonder, how long must I remain on this threshold of the unconscious? How long must I wait for clarity that may never fully reveal itself, like the flaming sword guarding paradise? These are fair questions, necessary, inherent to our hero's journey, because no one should have to live in eternal waiting, suspended in the void of non-being, and you have the right to be loved fully, not just in silence, not just between the lines of existence, but in the full force of the king and queen. So, my dear, here is the key, the portal to your healing and initiation. The clarity you seek in him must first blossom within you, like the warrior who discovers their inner strength. You need to ask yourself, does this love, even without a name defined by social standards, even without a clear form like a mapped path, nourish me with the energy of the magician, propel me to grow as the lover seeks beauty? Does it make me more aware of my shadow and my light, more faithful to my warrior essence? Or does it imprison me in a victim role that diminishes me, that distances me from my true self, the inner king and queen? This is the most honest answer you can offer yourself, an act of true courage, because loving someone who is not yet ready to reciprocate that love, someone trapped in their own maternal and paternal complexes, can be a sublime experience, but it can also become a prison, a trap for the soul, as Robert Moore wisely warns us. And Robert Moore guides us through this archetypal labyrinth, reminding us that everything we don't recognize in ourselves, all the repressed and unintegrated energies, we project onto others, like a mirror of our own psyche, a reflection of our unresolved complexes. Perhaps you see in him a reflection of a part of you that longs to awaken to the potential of the inner hero, that seeks the light of the self. Perhaps he represents your own unconscious, your unlived, unexplored side, the sleeping puer aeternus in the depths. And in seeing him, you find yourself, you recognize your own archetypal image, and that transforms everything. Because when you realize that the love you feel for him is, in part, a reflection of the love and integration you must nurture within yourself, the situation transmutes, like alchemy transforming lead into gold. You stop expecting a return and begin to tend your own inner garden, to water the seeds of the king and queen in your soul. You stop wanting external answers and begin to build internal clarity, to weave your own web of archetypal meaning. And from there, something magical happens. A portal opens to the self. You no longer need guarantees, because he became his own certainty, his own safe harbor, his own center. And it is in this moment of profound transformation, of true individuation, that he feels the shift, the vibration of his new archetypal energy. He feels something has transmuted within you, like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. You are no longer bound by expectations, by the shackles of waiting, by unresolved complexes. You are free, whole, radiant in your own light, the light of the self. And paradoxically, it is in this moment of liberation that many draw near, attracted by your inner strength, your integrated energy, because they perceive, even unconsciously, that the woman who needed an answer is now the answer itself, a beacon in the darkness, a personification of the queen and the lover. You become the gravitational center of your own life, the heroine of your own journey, and this attracts those ready to dance at this frequency or challenges those who haven't yet awakened to their own hero's journey. But in both cases, you strengthen, you expand, because you didn't lose yourself in the archetypal labyrinth, you didn't fade in the shadow of another. You didn't mold yourself to adapt to the emotional world of someone who hasn't yet deciphered their own feelings, who hasn't yet integrated their masculine and feminine energies. You remained true to your essence, to your inner truth, to yourself. And therein lies, dear Jan Pedro, the true miracle of conscious love, the miracle of alchemical transformation. It's when you love without betraying yourself, without losing yourself in the other, without drowning in complexes. Now, if you've come this far, don't leave this video without immersing yourself in this reflection, without integrating this archetypal wisdom into your own life. How to transform all these feelings, this sensitivity, this awareness, into a practical life plan, into concrete steps that honor the king, the queen, the magician, and the warrior within you. How can you apply what you've learned, what you've felt, what you've seen in this man to strengthen yourself, not only to understand him better, but to create within you the sacred space that this type of love needs to flourish, an inner garden watered by the waters of life, a space of full presence, of discernment, of attention not only with the other person but above all with yourself, with your hero's journey. If you feel ready for this archetypal journey, what comes next will be profoundly transformative, because now, more than a simple feeling, it's time to put Robert Moore's wisdom into practice, and perhaps for the first time, you are ready to do so in a new way. Real, peaceful, unshakable, like the mountain that resists storms. When all is silent, what remains in you when contact diminishes, gestures cease, the words you expected don't arrive? What remains in your heart, in the center of your being? If there's anything Robert Moore taught us about deep affections, it's that they don't dissipate with time. They don't get lost in the wind like seeds carried by the breeze. What is true doesn't evaporate. It transforms, matures like aged wine, or in some cases, impels us to mature, to integrate our archetypal energies, even if it never materializes on the external plane. That's why what you felt and everything this video has revealed to you must now leave the realm of reflection to transform into action, into movement, into an archetypal dance, because the pain of what wasn't said, of what wasn't lived, of what was left. Hanging can't be healed by passive waiting. It heals through conscious action, with a clear purpose, with the strength of the warrior who faces their inner dragons. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Here is the emotional and practical strategic plan, designed for you who wish to deeply apply everything you've understood so far, a map to navigate your unconscious. A plan born from the deep listening of your soul and the courage not to abandon yourself, even if the other person doesn't yet know how to find you, how to connect with your inner light, with your radiant self. 1. Accept what you feel without filters, without archetypal masks. Before undertaking anything, immerse yourself in your emotions like the hero who descends into the underworld. Honestly acknowledge exactly what you feel for him, without judging like the critical parent, without romanticizing like the naive lover, without minimizing the intensity of your archetypal experience. Is it desire, love, identification, need, a projection of the animus? Is it a complex mixture of all this, an alchemical cauldron of energies? Naming the feelings is the first act of power of the soul, the first step towards healing and individuation, as Robert Moore teaches us. Robert Moore teaches us that what doesn't become conscious governs us as destiny, as an invisible force that shapes us, like unresolved maternal and paternal complexes. The same applies to 1. Explore your feelings. Grab a pen and paper. Write down everything that comes to mind. What you've never said, what you're ashamed to admit, what pleases you, what paralyzes you, as if you were deciphering the symbols of a dream. Then read it aloud to yourself, letting the words resonate within your being, penetrating the depths of your psyche. This is your true starting point, the foundation of your alchemical transformation. 2. Define your part, and the part that refers to projection, the mirror of your soul, your unresolved complexes. Often we see in others a reflection of what we want to experience within ourselves, the unintegrated aspects of our own psyche. They become a symbol, a representation of a part of our soul that has not yet awakened, that still sleeps in the shadows, like the poor Eternus who refuses to grow. Therefore ask yourself, what attracts you so much to him? What does this symbolize for you, for your path of individuation? What part of you, what archetype is revealed when you approach him? When your energies meet, perhaps he represents the sensitivity you hide, the depth you long to find in others and in yourself, the longing for the union of the inner king and queen. Perhaps he connects you to your own essence, your center, the self. And that's why he exerts such a powerful magnetic force. But understand that it's possible that most of what you feel is an inner calling, a way for your soul to tell you, in the language of archetypes, take care of me, nurture my light, integrate my energies. 3. Create rituals of emotional anchoring, inner strengthening, and connection with the self. While he doesn't make his decision, while his silence still resonates in you like an echo in the void, you need to create a stable center within yourself, an inner sanctuary where the king and queen can meet. Start with simple but powerful rituals, 5 minutes a day in silence, feeling the presence of your body, the breath that animates it, the life energy flowing through you. A playlist that connects you to your essence, to what you feel, without getting lost in the labyrinth of emotions, without identifying with the victim or the critical parent. An affirmative phrase a day, a mantra that strengthens you, that connects you with the strength of the inner warrior. I am the sacred space where love is revealed, where the king and queen meet. A moment each week to write a letter to him, but one you won't send, a letter to your soul, to yourself. Write whatever you want. Let the words flow freely, without censorship, without the interference of the critical parent. This prevents you from drowning in absences, in expectations, and reconnects you with the most important love, the love for yourself, for your journey of individuation, the love for yourself. 4. Evaluate his actions without the illusion of the hero. with your feet planted on the fertile ground of reality. Observe with the presence of the warrior, with the calmness of the magician, without the immediate need to decipher all the enigmas. Does he truly approach with an open heart, with the energy of the lover? Does he listen to you with his body, with his soul, with the receptivity of the king? Does he welcome you, nurture you in the smallest details, with the kindness and respect inherent in mature masculinity? Does he change for you, mold himself to fit your expectations, seeking the approval of the tyrant father? Don't analyze out of neediness, out of the fear of loneliness inherent in the abandoned child. Analyze with love, with compassion, with the discernment of the spiritual warrior. You deserve authentic emotional reciprocity, a union of sovereign souls, and you can only give space to this love if you honor your integrity, if you don't get lost in the shadow projected by the other. 5. Make decisions that respect your time, your rhythm, your inner cycle, not just his. Waiting a long time is also a choice, a way of relating to life, and choices, like seeds thrown to the wind, have consequences that echo throughout our journey. Don't get trapped in an endless cycle of waiting, in a labyrinth of expectations created by the critical parent. Establish healthy boundaries for your soul, for your well-being, for your journey of individuation. For example, I wait, but while I wait, I fully live the energy of the lover. I love, but I don't stop loving myself, nurturing my essence, honoring my inner king. I observe, but I don't stand still, stagnated in time, imprisoned by the fear of the witch. This attitude changes everything, transforms your energy, aligns you with your purpose. It sends a clear signal to the universe and also to him. I don't wait for you passively. I choose myself. I honor my path. I embody my warrior. 6. Allow yourself to feel everything, to plunge into the depths of your emotions, into the deep waters of the unconscious, but without being petrified by the Medusa, without getting lost in the suffering of the victim. You can cry. You can allow yourself to feel the pain of absence, of uncertainty, the pain of a wounded child. But don't let sadness paralyze you, prevent you from following your soul's calling. You may be moved by a story your soul yearns for, a story echoing in your unconscious, in ancestral archetypes, but not yet materialized in the earthly plane. You may feel the pain of unrequited love, a love whispering unspoken promises, an echo of the immature lover. Don't let this longing become a prison, a confinement of your true self, a trap of the tyrant father. You deserve a love that blossoms in the garden of your being, a love that nourishes the roots of your soul, that honors your sovereignty. Allow yourself to feel the sadness, the pain of separation. Cry, write, give voice to your pain as a healing ritual. Talk to your friends, to your soul, to your dreams, to your archetypes. Walk through the forest of your inner world, along the paths of the unconscious. Read the symbols engraved on your heart. Laugh at life's absurdity and, above all, live with the strength of the warrior. True love doesn't demand stagnation. It dances with change, matures with the seasons of life, finds new ways to express itself, like the seed transforming into a flower, like the lover archetype integrating with the king. Give space to the deeper answer residing within you, the answer emerging from yourself, your center. The question is no longer whether he loves you with the fullness of the mature lover, but how you can nurture self-love, the strength of your inner king, while loving someone who hasn't yet discovered the source of love within themselves, the strength of their own self. This answer is the key that unlocks the doors of your soul, because in finding it, you free yourself from the web of dependence, the trap of the victim. You discover you can feel deeply, embrace vulnerability, like a spiritual warrior, while choosing not to settle for crumbs, for echoes of unrealized love, for the illusions of the immature magician. You recognize you can honor this bond while opening yourself to the new, to the present, to the eternal now, with the courage of the warrior. Love is a portal, a passage to the divine, but its true dwelling place is you, the sanctuary of your soul, the castle of your inner king. And if you've come this far, if every word resonated with your essence, if you felt the depth of this journey of individuation, then you are ready to experience this love in a more conscious, fuller, lighter way with him or without him. But this requires daily care for your soul, like a sacred garden, a sacred space to welcome your feelings, to decipher the symbols emerging from the unconscious, from your mythical journey, to hear the voice of your inner wisdom, yourself, amidst the emotional turmoil. At this point, I offer a suggestion for your next step. The works of Robert Moore, with his teachings on male archetypes and the hero's journey, were created for moments like this. This isn't a book about relationships, but an intimate guide for the soul's journey, an invitation to encounter yourself each day. Through understanding archetypes and the hero's journey, according to Robert Moore, you will be able to illuminate the dark corners of your psyche, dissolve silent anguish, reorganize your thoughts and, most importantly, reconnect with your inner peace, with the strength of your inner king, even when your emotional world is in chaos. If this resonates with you, I invite you to explore the works of Robert Moore. This is a safe space to continue your journey with more presence and purpose, with the courage of the spiritual warrior. Finally, if this video touched something true within you, if you recognized yourself in this story, please like this video. This will allow YouTube to share this content with other women who, like you, are experiencing this silent and profound love, this journey of individuation. Share your experience in the comments if you wish. You can remain anonymous. This is a safe space, a circle of sisters, a space to honor the feminine. Each word you share can illuminate the path of another soul. And if you're not yet subscribed to the Plenitude na Reflexão channel, subscribe now. Here, each video is a balm for the soul, a mirror for those who feel deeply, an invitation to the hero's journey. Until the next video, remember, you are not alone.